Eyes that focus on what is beautiful bring joy to the heart. My eldest son got a telescope for his birthday a few years ago, and we spent many evenings setting it up outside in the back garden, and on a clear evening looking up at the moon. All his brothers loved to look through the telescope, and me and my husband would spend sometimes hours in the back garden focusing the lens so that we could see as much detail of the moon as possible. And it took time to get the lens set up so that it focused in on the points that we wanted to see, on the deep craters in the moon that took our breath away. So our minds are, and so our thoughts are. How we view the world for each of us is through our own individual lens. You've heard the story that you're either glass half full or glass half empty. How do you see it? You either view it through a lens of, well, the glass is nearly empty, or you view it through a lens of, well, the glass is nearly full. What we choose to focus on, what we choose to look at, what we choose to attune our life and our thoughts to, becomes how we believe and how we see the world, the lens by which we see the world. And so taking some time to stand back and reflect on, how am I viewing this? How am I viewing the difficulty and the struggle? How am I viewing the stress? How am I viewing the life that I am currently living? And sometimes when we stand back and we reflect on how we view the world, or we reflect on the lens by which we see the world, we notice that we've been looking at the world through a tainted lens. Maybe we've been looking at the world through a victim lens, which is, woe is me. It's always me that's hard done by. It's always me that gets the drama. It's always me that gets the struggle and me that gets the stress. Maybe we view the world through a negative lens, where even the good and the positive, we just can't seem to see it. And yet when we search for the beautiful, it fills our heart. It brings joy to our soul when we look for the good and when we look for the beautiful, and when we focus the lens of our eyes and our thoughts and our heart on those things that are good. You know, I've realized it doesn't take very long to find some things in life to be grateful for, to find some things in life to be thankful for. And many times, by default, we become overwhelmed with the things that we aren't happy with the things that aren't enough, with the things that we wish would change. And instead choosing to focus and using the lens of life that looks through things and says, wow, I'm grateful for this. That looks through things, and instead of always focusing on the negative, asks, what could be the positive? I remember a few years ago when I went through a really difficult time when I was changing business, and everything seemed really up in the air, and I was really struggling with my emotions, with my mental health, with motivation, really struggling. And I remember knowing, as I'm walking through these difficult weeks and months that became a long time, as I'm walking through this struggle, I can either choose to look at it and think, this is never going to end, this is so tough, look at my life, I wish I had their life, I wish I had that, I wish I had this, I wish I had the other. Or I can choose to look at it like this: I am in the middle of a very challenging time in my life. However, I'm going to get the gold out of the struggle. In challenge, there is always stuff to be learned. In fact, we never learn the great things of life when the going is easy. We learn the great things of life when the going is tough. We learn in challenge. If we choose to look at it through a lens that says, I want to learn, I want to be a lifelong learner, we're either green and growing or ripe and rotting. And so there are many difficult times that life throws us. There are many storms that it puts in our path. There are many challenges and hurdles and mountains to climb and things to overcome, and difficulty and struggle will be a part of all of our lives and will look very differently for everybody. But the difference often is perspective and the lens by which we view the world. And sometimes we can go through our entire life and never notice that the lens by which we viewed the world was tainted. The lens by which we viewed the world was negative. The lens by which we viewed the world was crooked. And I think time to reflect enables us to sometimes just refocus the lens of life. And sometimes we need to stand back and we need to look at the lens. We need to ask ourselves, how am I viewing the world? How am I viewing this relationship? How am I viewing the life that I'm living in now? How am I viewing myself? How am I viewing my situation, my circumstances? And we will nearly always find that there's always room to slightly adjust the lens so that we view things more positively, so that we view things with gratitude, so that we view things in a healthier way. And as we look at the world in a different way, often the world responds to us differently. The lens by which we view the world is so incredibly important. You can have two people that face the exact same challenge, and one becomes stronger and rises above it and becomes greater for it, and another is knocked to the ground and never gets up again. Why? The lens by which we view the world, how we view struggle, how we view stress, how we view difficult times is incredibly important. My mum used to say, I remember there was a time when I was working for a boss who was very, very difficult to work for. And my mum used to say, do not let her grind you down. Let her grind you up. Don't let her grind you down. Learn from this. Learn from it. Learn from the difficulty. Learn how not to lead. Learn how not to treat people. Learn how not to manage. Learn how not to be. Learn how to have grace. Learn how to hold your tongue. Learn how to have some self-control when you want to say some things. It taught me so much, the challenges life throws us. Whilst in them they feel so incredibly hard, but often many of them are for our benefit. But it's how we choose to view them in difficult times. View it through a lens that says, what are you teaching me? How can I grow through this? How can I be changed through this? How can I become more compassionate through this? How can I become a more reflective person? How can I become a better human being? How can I understand other people better through the struggle and challenge that I'm going through myself? The lens by which we view the world. Taking some time to stand back and reflect on the lens by which you view the world can be incredibly empowering and can actually be quite life altering when we notice that all of us have places within the lens of our life that we can readjust.